in the door, the aroma of fresh-baked bread greeted my nose as my grandma welcomed me into her arms. Even though it's been 11 years since this scene played out, my grandma, Caroleen Adrian, impacted me in ways that are still evident today. My grandma significantly shaped my current interests and passions during the early years of my life. Although she died when I was 7, I have many memories of my grandma. She infused my appreciation for homemade cooking, reading, nature, animals, and music. Follow me into the kitchen, where Grandma is rolling out a fresh batch of pepper nuts. My grandma was a traditional Mennonite housewife who whipped up traditional baked goods on a regular basis. After combining the ingredients for bread, Grandma would let me pick out a book to read while we waited for it to bake. Grandma had a wide variety of children's books, which she read over and over to me while I sat on her lap. I eagerly expected a new story every time I came to Grandma's house and became extremely excited to learn to read myself. When we finished a book, Grandma would pull a stool up to the counter so I could check on the bread's progress. If there were leftover bread crusts from yesterday's loaf, Grandma would let me feed them to the farm cats. Grandma always took the time to observe the beauty of God's creation, and she let me spoil the kittens as much as she spoiled me. While serving milk-soaked bread crusts to familiar felines, I selected names for each pampered pet. During my silly cat christenings, Grandma encouraged my imagination. This developed into the creative thinking process that is so natural to me today. Along with memories of animals, I also recall gardening with Grandma. One of our gardening days ended with a trip to Dairy Queen. I could not finish my ice cream treat, so Grandma let me place the half-eaten cone on a picnic table outside the restaurant for some special squirrel. Later that day, we drove past the restaurant again, and much to my joy, the cone had disappeared and I really had shared my snack with a squirrel. While working in the garden, I helped Grandma sow seeds in the springtime, which she harvested in the fall to can. No matter how many times she explained it to me, I never understood how Grandma made cucumbers into pickles. I learned to accept it as some sort of magical process performed by wise old ladies only. While we were outside, Grandma often pointed out special varieties of flowers to me. I remember her specifically highlighting lily of the valley. Whenever someone mentions the plant, I think of it as Grandma's favorite gardening gift from God. Often we took a break from the garden to sit facing each other in the old double garden swing. While we sat on the swing together, Grandma would teach me different songs. I enjoyed singing with Grandma and also playing piano with her in the house, which developed my love for music early on. Grandma taught me the words to Lullaby Baby, and we sweetly sang the lullaby in the swing, the breeze swaying us back and forth. In the house, Grandma practiced piano and organ to play in church. When she was finished, I climbed up on the bench to compose my own random renditions. Even though my melodies were probably loud and sorely out of tune, Grandma never scolded me. She encouraged my love for music at an early age when I was still too little for lessons. After I begged her to teach me a song, Grandma taught me what I now know to be the C pentachord, a series of 5 white notes. As soon as I got home from Grandma's house, I raced to the piano to play my song proudly for my mom. As I replayed the precious memories of my Grandma Caroleen, I realized how many of those melodies still remain in me today. Even though I am separated from my grandma in the present world, a part of her is beside me on the bench while I practice piano. Maybe she can smell the baked goods I prepare, since she first introduced me to my family's favorite ethnic foods. I owe a part of my reading ability to my grandma for reading books over and over to me. Grandma Caroleen may not be on my mind every time I behold a sunset or a flower, but she did a great deal to inspire the awe and appreciation I hold for God's creation. My dad says I get my narrow feet and rather short and small frame for my Grandma Caroleen. However, I prefer to prize the passions and talents that made up both Grandma's identity and my own.